Okay, everybody. My name's Will Grossman. I'm your vice president, and we're going to do our second Linework meeting once more with feeling. That's a little music joke for you, for y'all. What is Linework? Pretty big question. It's kind of obvious. It's lines. Linework is contours, it's shapes. There's many different types and styles of linework. It varies incredibly. These three artists right here, we got Mobius on the left doing a lot of like cross hatching. He's one of the old gods of linework. The middle is Faith Schaefer. I'm going to talk about her later. And the last one is Connor Fawcett, who's not famous, but really good. Wow, this is crunchy. Jeez. The left here is Hicham Habchi, really good artist. Did some viz dev for Riot. I think I talk about him later. And this right here is Hakunet or Anais Floney, who I'm also going to talk about later. Linework is our contours. It's our building blocks. We use it a lot. It's one of the fundamental skills that you get taught. But it has a lot of nuance, and it has a lot of different applications that we can get into. Last time, we talked about some more looser and more like esoteric stuff with the Linework. I mentioned this quote. This is Mobius, who I mentioned. It's a very wordy quote that really just means like, don't try to get too perfect or don't try to be too fast. Linework has an interesting relationship with speed, and that's something that, again, I'm going to keep mentioning. But Mobius, absolute legend when it comes to Linework. Really important stuff. One of our great progenitors. Okay, but the two things I really focused on during that first meeting was Linework as a compositional tool, which doesn't really gel well with like, I don't think I was as smart as I am now. I kind of used Linework as a compositional tool, more so just to talk about lines in compositions. This is a piece by Wiley Beckert, and we see like big like lines that are splitting our compositions into, different parts, drawing our eyes around, less so focused on the actual line quality and more so focused on here are ways to use lines in your compositions. So a little loosey-goosey, not super relevant, but something to keep in mind. The second one, I talked about Hirohiko Araki, and really all I did was just be like, wow, Linework's cool, and you can do cool different styles with it. It is, but I didn't really talk about why stylization is important. So I'm using this meeting to kind of talk about some more grounded and relevant knowledge to how you can apply Linework in a concept art / viz dev field. Why is Linework useful? Here's the most important thing. Linework's fast. I think Mobius was a little wrong in the fact that, this weird balance between speed and perfection, this weird kind of lofty knowledge. No, Linework in our industry gets used because Linework on the whole is usually a lot faster than rendering. And in concept art, where time is money, literally, and we're burdened and controlled by our deadlines, we use speed as one of our like main stats. So being able to do quick lines that show off good shape language, good structure in a simple and like relatively easy to communicate method quickly is why Linework gets used. Where we see Linework is, I think viz dev is going to be the main one. Stuff for animation is a lot where we're seeing lines today, and like the AAA equivalent, where a lot of the big money is going to be in animation. Where we see it in game stuff is we're seeing it with more stylized stuff. That's not to say we don't see it in the AAA. I know Riot uses a lot of really good line work in their quick concepting, but not a lot with really big splashes. I talk about I mentioned Hicham Habchi earlier. He goes by Pyro Daily. He was the I might link him later. I think I talk about him. But he did work with Riot, but then worked on like some of the side projects, like they're using it with the Ruined King, like the side game. So we're seeing it in smaller projects in games where there's more artistic freedom. We don't see line work in a lot of hyper realism stuff because it's just not really useful there. So here's some really good examples of line work being used in VizDev. This is Steven Sugar. He's one of my favorite overall artists, period. But he is or was at least, I don't know what exactly he's working on right now, but he was one of the head background designers for Steven Universe. And he's done a bunch of game jams and other small indie games, but he's concepting with line. Look at how he's using he has a really unique style of line. There's just a lot of really good stuff going on, but he's able to sell and communicate such a complex background with so much detail, but using lines to simplify all of his shapes. So lines are a really great tool for allowing us to stylize and to simplify, and that's why it gets used. The second, closer to more of that Riot style, this is Night Zhang. She's a freelance concept artist. A lot of the sketch work and the stylization gets done with these really contour heavy, really gestural kind of designs. We're seeing little bits of block shadows, stuff like I can turn on the laser pointer. I love this thing. We see little bits of block shadow and thicker contours where we see more emphasis on joints and weight. Really good stuff. I love these big block shadow kind of things that we're getting. A lot of really good shape language. Look at these triangles. Look at these rounded and sharp forms. Really good stuff. So we do see line work, but we see it where speed is emphasized. Like in animation, because you have to draw X amount of pictures in X amount of time, and in early concepting where things we don't have the time to fully render something, line work gets used as a good way to stylize and to get things out quickly. Now, a typical line work process is pretty self-explanatory. We go from rough to clean. Now, there are a few methods of doing it, a few different quirks. Some people go about things a little differently. Commonly, you'll see a blue line, something like this. This is kind of a technique borrowed from more sequential stuff, like comics is where you see a lot of blue lining. It's an inking technique that we see brought into digital, which is really cool. Cosimo Galuzzi has his entire from lines to color process as a PDF. I'll go find it. I have it. It's free on the internet. It's really good. This guy's crazy. But look about what's going on here. He's using his blue sketch here, really loosely. There's confidence, yeah, but it's just feeling out the forms. Look at this hand. It's barely a hand. It's a what's the word? It's barely a seed of a hand. It's it's simplifying, right? He's just getting the feeling of his design going, and then line work is where he goes and cleans it up. Getting those big block shadows in, refining the pose, using a blue line or using a reference sketch layer is super important. and you'll see it everywhere. Night Zhang had it here, like this kind of thing, or this, that's that sketch for kind of feeling out the form. So always think about from rough to clean. Yeah, here's Hichem Habchi, really good artist. Look at how he's taking like this really rough pencil and just slowly cleaning it up, tightening the lines. Line work is really all about getting confident, even from a sketch to a final. It's getting those initial forms in there, having a really strong like base, and then just polishing it. So I'm going to talk about this a little later at the end of the presentation, but line work is really important in like it's a fundamental, it's a brush hours skill. So keep that in mind. Now, colored line work is another kind of piece of flair. We see this more so in kind of more illustrative places. This is Anais Floney, or Hawkinette on social media. This person is, I talk about another Gobelins artist right after this, but a lot of the kids coming out of Gobelins, which is a French animation school, all kind of have this kind of similar use of colored line work and a lot of really strong gesture. We're seeing like these deep navies and reds to kind of accentuate our rendering, even if our rendering is cell shading or very simple like flats with a multiply layer, using little bits of our colored line work can accentuate that. It can add detail where there isn't, just with a bit of color. I like to use a lot of color. I think I have a figurative example. Yeah, right here. Look at this right here. I talked about in another meeting ambient occlusion, the effect of like light going through skin. And other, semi-transparent forms. When light hits an object like skin or something that has depth to it, we see like red getting used. So this is like a really cool line-based way to simplify a real phenomenon. Like I'm jumping over my words here. Ambient occlusion is like the effect when you put a flashlight up to your hand and you can see the blood inside because it turns red. That's what Anais is using right here to kind of simplify that. Again, also in the face, we see like browns instead of blacks. I think using brown as kind of your main go-to line instead of like super harsh blacks is really good. It has an effect of softening a lot of your forms and getting this kind of ethereal quality to them. We see them here too. Like, look at all the, like, not a single bit of like really harsh blacks is getting used. Even in like the jeans, we're seeing like a very dark like teal. So colored line work it's like that little bit of flavor on top. It's really good at simplifying what is already a tool used to simplify other things. So I am going to talk about colored line work more, and we're going to do a bit of it in the demo. But it really comes out when we're doing, it needs to be colored first. Colored line work without any colors underneath is going to look a little weird. And I can talk about some of the specifics too. So the second artist, again, with these really sharp reds, also Gobelins kid, is Juliette Bracall. Look at all of these reds right here. This is insane. Not a little bit of black anywhere, or even brown. Almost entirely red line work for the exterior contour. We see a little bit of browns on the inside, but like, you can make choices like this to really sell kinds of feelings, to sell different, amounts of emotion or tonal qualities. colored line work's a really good storytelling tool. So, look at the contrast between these two, how like soft and like serene against the harsh red that we get here. It's such a cool contrast compared to this like really mellow and solemn green. This figure in a very like relaxed gesture on top of a horse. Just like a lot of really good notes being hit. So we can think about using colored line work more so after we get our colors laid in. It's an icing, but it's a really powerful icing. It's like uranium powered icing. Now I'm going to do a little bit talking about how we can use line work to bolster our form and shape language. I'm going to talk about a few things here. This is something I've learned recently and have started keeping in mind. This is from Ethan Becker, YouTuber, animation guy, worked on, I know he did some stuff for Invincible. He did a bunch of stuff. He's really good animator. But we're going to be talking about something called points of decision, or the place where two lines meet. So Ethan Becker really makes it clear to get like good gesture and good lines. The most important spot on your piece, figuratively, is the joints. Having places where two lines hit be a really clean transition, usually taking away from like very bendy forms to very like sharp kind of transitions, especially around knees, joints, like your elbows. It's really important. This is, points of decision. This is Sophie Lee. Again, like, look at how gestural and strong these points of connection are. Look at this, right? Like, the kinds of like confidence around the joints on a figurative form is super important. These points of decision are super important, especially in an animation world where clarity about movement is so desired, and in video games too for animation purposes. Having a very readable character with really strong points of decision through your lines is critical. So it's something subtle, but it's something really nice to keep in mind. Here again, this is Faith Schaefer, visual development. I can speak. Visual development artist for Disney TV and animation. I think a new series by her is coming out soon. I can't remember the name of it, but I was reading through her Twitter, so keep an eye out for her. But like, again, the most important, I'm just like doing a breakdown of the gender. What the? What the? Gesture. Sorry. Look at how sharp her joint transitions are. Look at how strong her gesture is. Even though this is like a sitting stationary form, we have these like slight bits of like contrapposto and stuff like that. But the most important piece and part of this design, this character, what's really selling me is, these kinds of forms. I do a zoom in on it. This right here, this little like bit of line to show how the shoulder blade like goes into the bicep, like, or deltoid into bicep. Like, look at that. This little bit of like transition, this point of decision, like, is establishing like this really tight shoulder line. Really good stuff, the sharpness in the elbows, really good joints makes up a really good figure. So when we go to do the demo with a character, I'm going to be focusing on using my lines for really good joints. So This is a character that I just did a while ago in voice text. This is a fan art piece of 12, a character from Street Fighter Third Strike. Fighting games is a really important place for really good joints and really good like transitional lines to kind of sell this. Like just the little bit where two lines meet being like a very sharp kind of transition allows us to have like really nice forms. So think about how you get your lines to not only sell gesture, but how they connect to one another. Those points of decision are so important. Again, yeah, going into fighting games, this is Skullgirls from Lab Zero. This is Philia. Um, Look at how they're breaking down all of the individual forms on a character using these really sharp and like confident lines. There's no scratchiness here. It's all confident. Um, like again, I'm focusing on like knees and joints because it's probably like the best way to kind of see this. But the most important thing here, outside of just this, is they have this little graph here, like showing these little joints and everything, showing like how well read a character can be by their appendages and using those lines there, using really strong bits of gesture to communicate character. So having really good shape language through our lines, through using our points of decision to accentuate and kind of influence how we're going about constructing our figures is going to be what allows us to push our characters really far with our line work. So again, what are we seeing that's really good here? Good points of decision, good gesture, really confident line work. We see block shadows. We see, we're not seeing any sense of shakiness. We're seeing confidence. And confidence is king in line work, as it is in interviews and other things. Having a really good sense of exactly knowing where our lines are. And we can develop that confidence through good process using stuff like, a blue line or an underlying sketch layer, going from rough to clean. That process of taking a rough form and simplifying it, again, like the core of concept art, simplification, understanding, problem solving. Really important stuff. So I think I just say, yeah, bold shapes, good points of decision, and confident lines. That's how we make good line art, is using these three things. Thinking about shape instead of just, like anatomy. We're thinking about like having strong shapes, big forms that it's like that. It's that next stage after you get our fundamentals of anatomy. We want to push it. We want to go beyond it and style. Using line work as a sense of stylization is really key in getting us to that next stage. So line work allows us to stylize and demonstrate our understanding of fundamental shapes and forms. In the end, line work is a brush hour based skill. I mentioned to Tessa asked me about how to improve her lines, and I was like, line work's like the flip side of rendering. And it's like weird to think about that, but it's another skill that's just like, to get better at line work, one, you want to study with the intention of improving your line work. Two, you want to keep in mind the kinds of forms that you're using. And three, you got to be willing to invest the time. It's like, if you want to get better at line work, you have to get better at line work, which is a really kind of backwards and like analogy. Not analogy. I don't have my words today. But thinking about a brush hour based skill is something to keep in the back of your head. Think about with every piece, how can I get my lines a little more confident? If you realize that you aren't confident, that's the first step to becoming confident, knowing that there is a problem. So I'm going to do a demo now. I know I kind of blazed through that fast, so I think I'm going to we got a lot more time to do the demo, which is really nice. So we can get pretty in depth with how we're going about making a character. I'm going to get the second stream pulled up real fast. Sorry for being a little flustered, but here we go. Let me see if I can stream my iPad here. Always a doozy. I got to bring in my homunculus. Man, I'm going to get a drink real fast too. I love me some lines. That's what I'm saying. Let me get my doohickey in here. That's Will too, don't mind him. Let's start up a broadcast. All right. So I think what I'm also going to do is I'm going to provide this document to everyone else. I know this looks really rough. That's kind of the purpose. I wanted to just get a really rough sketch in here just to have something so I didn't totally brick my demo. I'll send my mood board and my and this document in if anyone wants to, try lining it with me, try, using your own style of line work on this. This is kind of a stock.
Is this a draw this in your own style with Will Grossman?
Maybe a little bit, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Wow. This is, I'm using kind of a stock character here, which is edgy vampire swordsman. We see this guy everywhere, so my entire reference set is just vampires and swordsmen. But I'm just I'm gonna go through the process of cleaning up these lines. I'm gonna put some flats on this, and then we're gonna do some colored line work with it. So let me send this here. I know this looks rough. We're gonna make it look better, trust me.
It's loading.
Oh, it's loading. Oh my!
It's not loading.
It's not loading.
Yeah.
Oh man. Sheesh. Okay. Let me.
Oh, it just loaded for me actually. I don't know if it
just
loaded.
Wait, let me go back. How about now? Are we in?
Yes.
Is everyone? Took a good second, but yes. Okay.
Yes.
I hope so. Okay. Oh yeah, I see it on my screen too. Okay. It might be a little laggy streaming from. I'll send this PSD if anyone wants to follow along.
For the record, Swain is not a vampire.
No, but his design language is
aesthetic.
A vampire.
So his aesthetic is Edgar Allan Poe. He has his main theme is literally ravens and crows.
It's close enough.
Yeah. Can you upload your? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm putting it in. Yeah, it just took me a second. Okay.
Peeps was asking in the chat.
Yeah. So what I did here was pretty much get a really rough sketch of a character. I put his gesture in, yada yada. Now we're gonna go through and clean it up. I'm gonna talk about some brushes here with you guys too. I'll put all my Procreate brushes that I use. I have a few. They're all named very poorly. I have Will's Excalibur, which I kind of have all of my line work brushes in order of really messy to not messy. And then I have a few brushes that are I made copies of line work that I like. So, I have stuff like this. It's really they're very similar brushes, but I'll change them around depending on what kind of feel I'm going for. So, this kind of bitmappy look is something that I push, but I just have a bunch of them. This is Will's Messier pen, which is slightly cleaner. Some of them vary just in less so the grain or whatever, and more so just in the amount of smoothness and drawing assist that's on there. And then again, I have a clean line, that is ever so slightly more clean. Look at how how similar these are. Yeah, this is like the microcosm of like how I go about dealing this, going through my lines. And then I have like one that's like a smooth line. Ew, gross. Oh, it's tiny. Ew, gross. Actual like perfect mechanical lines. I don't like that look. I don't like the absolutely perfect line. So I like to have a little bit of crunch to my lines. And then I have one more brush that I use as kind of this is my Steven Sugar copy brush. Oh fuck. Everything went green for a second. Streaming from the iPad is pretty new, so I don't think it's the most advanced piece of tech in the world yet. But I have this brush, which is like literally just a circle grain with some spacing, and it gets this cool like stippled effect. I use this for a lot of environment stuff. I'm not really using that for characters, but I will send all of these brushes after I'm done with the demo, so everyone can have a fun time with some Will Grossman brand brushes. I think I'm gonna go with this one. This is like my second most crunchy one. A little bit of crunch. A decent amount of crunch. So I already laid in some of my gesture here. It's very stylized. I was just kind of putting something down so that I could have a base to go off of. So I'm going to go through and kind of start lining this. So I like to start with like a few baselines. Like I like doing my shoulders. I like doing shapes for the chest. I already kind of put some of these in. So like where shirts meet pants at our torso, at our waist, I think is a really good place to start when laying in a character. I got a lot of these things in here to show folds, but really like keeping a confident line. I'm not doing this. I don't like. I'm not doing that. Right. I'm using a single line to convey my shape. I'm going slow, but in the end, it's going to save me time because the forms are already there, right? Like the first time around, I get it right instead of having to go back and erasing and changing and, wasting more time like that. So it's efficient. That's the idea. Clever laziness. But then again, I just kind of second guess myself by changing my lines. Again, I haven't done a demo in a minute. It might be a little rough, but we'll get through. I'm watching out for, how I'm putting my lines together, where lines are meeting. Putting in little bits of block shadow where I want them. Again, like having like a nice place where the joints connect is really, really important to kind of get that. So Brooke made a comment here. When I was first doing digital, I was using the standard G pen and CSP and spending so many hours trying to make the most perfect smooth lines. Pen I was using messier brushes with yeah. Exactly. I think I've definitely got that. I liked the appearance of messy lines without my shapes being messy. So I just use a messy brush, but my hand is already like semi-clear. So it gets that crunchiness, but my shapes are still strong. So like getting this kind of coat form in here, that's a little wrong, ain't it? Yeah, just having really good points where things connect, where our joints connect, where lines overlap, different amounts of, emphasizing these points. So keeping all that in mind, I think I'm going to do a bit of a flared out shirt, like a doublet, I think that might be called. I don't know, one of those fancy, like, old-timey, like, very flared out at the hands. Ruffles? A ruffle? Like the chip? I don't know. I'm not a fashion major. I'm sorry, guys. Maybe? Yeah, that's kind of what I'm gonna do here. I think I'm gonna add some more like fluff and ruffle to this as I go. But again, keeping in mind where forms are overlapping. Yeah, here's something I like to do. Instead of doing like a very scratchy line, where I'm not sure of something, I like to stop. Instead of like trying to keep that form going, I'll be like, here, I know a little bit, and then I know a little bit more. Right? Doing stuff like that. Pirate shirt. Yeah, exactly. So doing stuff like that is really important. Having places where, yeah, like this stuff, this is the juice. These little places where our joints connect, we can kind of accentuate that to get really good, like, flowing bits of fabric. Really gestural stuff. I think gesture drawing is a really great exercise for improving your line work. That's kind of my background. My usual practice regimen was just like I'd hop on quick poses and I'd just do a bunch of poses for a few hours. And that's just like a really good way to getting that lexicon of more refined forms. So and I'm going to sound like a heathen for this. I usually put my hands in as stupid orbs because hands require a good bit of thinking. So when I'm trying to get better, but I'll throw in like a very gestural shape, but I won't leave it like that. I'm not a Rashad.
Recording will. So a real quick tip for like gesturally drawing hands, something I saw, I think in an Sinex video actually, is you draw out the thumb, index finger, you can lump the middle and ring finger together, and then pinky.
That's kind of what I do.
It's a really good gestural. It reads as a hand, obviously not like super defined, but it serves its purpose.
Yeah, that's my stock hand, right? I do this a bunch, which is
yep.
This is like what I do, because like I can do this from my head in any angle, but to get all the specific fingers, I gotta go look at something. So that's usually my stock hand. Pretty easy to do. And of course, since this is the stock character of like vampire swordsman, it has to have really big silver hair. That's in everything. So, like Alucard has this, Swain has this, Sephiroth has this. I think all these guys are related. Because we see this trait everywhere. I don't know why. It looks cool. That's probably like the meat and potatoes of it. I like doing these little simplified faces. I might make it a little more complex if I go into like rendered colors or whatever. That's looking a little whack though. So let's make it a little better. How about that?
Another thing I just remembered about like getting over shaky lines is like tracing your line before you're gonna do it.
Yeah.
Like just tracing with your hand.
Yeah.
That like really helped me when I was trying to get over doing super shaky lines. And if you're like learning brushes too, just tracing and then seeing how it comes out.
Yeah, I think doing a lot of stuff with your hand first, like getting smooth movements. This is also like a muscle thing. Learning to instead go from your arm instead of your wrist. That'll give you a lot smoother lines.
It'll get you longer lines too. The like where the origin of where you're drawing from directly depicts like how long you can draw that line without having to like readjust your body and get like, you know, make it all wiggly and wonky. Obviously if you're just using like your wrist, it's going to be a really short line. If you're using up to your elbow, it's going to be a decently long line. But if you're drawing from like your shoulder, it's like damn near like the longest line you can draw.
I'll have this overlap a little bit of where the coat kind of comes out. Again, the design here isn't the most important thing. I'm I'm really just kind of focused on making something that has decent line work just to show off what's going on. Sometimes you do these things in a pinch. So I like these needle feet. I can do better feet. I've learned how to do better feet. I just like I like them. I think they look cool. I don't think a lot of artists do this specifically. I just think it looks nice. So, you know, little bits of stylization to set yourself apart. Hey, that's good. Maybe not the greatest advice ever, but it's what I've been telling myself. Oh, you know what? This cape doesn't have like sleeves. I'll do some of those hanging like sleevey bits. Yeah, there we go. Just to make those forms a little clearer. Oh, and to get rid of this tangent too. You know, a little bit of this. Oh yeah, that's that good stuff. Yeah, I'll have some sleeves coming off. How about that? It's okay. Okay, so now that I kind of have like something laid in, I can zoom out and see where it's a little rough. These hands are a little too comically oversized, which again, I think is a good point of advice. If you're wondering, if you're having a hard time deciding if your hands are too small or too big, go on the side of too big. It looks better. Except if they're like crazy yaoi hands, then maybe not. We've made the joke of yaoi hands. Can someone pull up that Discord emote that we have on here? the yaoi chak? Anybody? Okay. There it is. I don't even know what's going on here. I think. Yeah, that's creating a tangent. Again, always watch your tangents. It's hard to see, but the best way to check it is to zoom out. Look for those little bits of places where you can check those. And again, get other people to run tangent patrol for you. Sometimes you go into crit and that's what you get, right? Is a bunch of people saying, here, look at this tangent I found. Again, you know, there's my stock hand coming in again. That really quick form. Yeah, so this is a little funky. He's a little top heavy. But I think it's fun. You know, I think we've got some fun shapes going here. I I think I want to play with the collar a little more. Turn this into maybe something a little more ruffled. Looking at my reference. Maybe we'll do something a little more unique for our collar shape. We'll get a bigger boob window. Maybe we'll do a little detail for having like some belt loops. Little bits. But then again, again, I'm gonna come and look in little bits of places where I can block in some shadows. I don't really obviously, clap for the boob window. Can't be a proper vampire swordsman without a very generous boob window. That's what I'm saying. I love male boob windows. I'm sorry. When you got pecs like these, right? Okay, so we've kind of blocked something in. That's a little rough, but there's a character here. I'm gonna do some pretty quick flats, and then I'm gonna go over colored line work and kind of how I like to go about doing that. So my layers are set up like this. I have like I have 2 rough sketch layers. If you saw the Photoshop document, this method of like doing a human like this kind of shape, I got this from Atkins figure drawing class. It's like the sequel one. I think he does the illustration one too. If you can take him, Atkins is really good with this kind of thing. So I really like his figure stuff.
He also does linear concept art for comics.
Yeah, he does.
He doesn't really render. He does black and white inks and then hands them off to his brother, and his brother paints them.
Let's go Atkins' brother. Yeah, so I'm gonna polish a few of these details. Add a little how about some buttons or whatever. Just a few things. Erasing where I went over a little bit. Just like this. Making our lines a little bit cleaner. Then for me, I'm going to actually get rid of my sketch layer now that I don't need it. And we're going to throw... Is this... Okay, this is a blank layer. I have to tap just to check. I'm always like... I'm blind. That's the joke there. I can't see what my layers are without having to spam turn them on. I'm not super worried about the colors here. I just want something. This is too yellow. I'll go for like a cream. I'm going to also change this to gray. Again, better to color on gray than on white. It's easier to see for all you visually impaired folks. Higher contrast. And I was watching a Cynics video. He does like his anatomy quick tips series. He did one on skulls, and he was talking about how like certain tones you want a different color under them. So like for a skull which is a yellow, having like a deep green or a deep blue can really help you bring out that contrast. So something to keep in mind. That's a little anecdote, not anecdote. Piece of advice? I'm not on my words today. I didn't do my Wordle. Shit.
Dude, today's Wordle is hard.
Yeah, I'm just flatting. Nothing really to see here. Pretty boring. I just want to show off the colored lines. So, yada yada. And optimally, like if I was good and if I like had the patience, I'd instead go in and do this in selections instead of like coloring it all in. But I have very low patience with my selections, and because of the way I can't always see the little dotted line, so sometimes like doing stuff in selections can take a lot longer for me, because I'll just like select the same shape 15 times to get it absolutely perfect. So I've gotten pretty decent at being able to like color within my lines well. My coloring books as a kid, though, were not very pretty. I couldn't see the lines. So again, for like, I like thinking about using my darks in either cool or warm. I love doing like warm darks for pants like this, because then we're gonna add a nice highlight on it. It'll look cool, trust me. I'm thinking about actually rendering this. I should shut up. I'm literally just trying to get to the point where we can do colored lines, and I can show you a little bit of how that works. But maybe we'll do a little rendering. We still got a bit of time. I've still got like an hour, so we'll see. But again, this speed has been built over just by doing it a lot. Like, speed comes from setting yourself goals and from like trying to achieve those goals. I use my Instagram post counter to keep myself like going. I try to get a post out every 2 days, so it makes me work quickly. And I'm definitely losing people here. You know, it's okay. I did the meeting. I get it if you don't want to stay for the demo. You're everyone's totally. I'm not keeping you here, but if you want to see this.
I will say it's of note. Don't fall into like the false tool fallacy here. Don't get too bent up on like what types of like brushes and all that that like Will is using, because great pieces of art can literally be done with just the standard hard brush. And I just wanna touch on that real quick.
Yeah, Tessa, what's up?
So I agree with Chris if it's digital. So I don't know if we have any other traditional painters in here. Your brushes and your paints as a traditional painter can make or break a piece. Now, that's not saying you can't use like bargain brands. Like as long as you know how to use your hair on a stick and you can put paint on whatever surface you're using, like all the more power to you. And it's impressive to be able to use and wield like those materials in the way that you are. But like if you want an easier ride, I would definitely say painting is pay to play or like pay to win. Because the difference between $1 brushes and a nice like $25 sable brush is night and day. Like there is that difference. But in terms of line art,
I was mostly talking about digital.
yeah, well, I mean, I think it's good to address traditional too. But like in the sense of digital, like to kind of like hop on that train, uh I'm a person who like usually avoids line art, but after being forced to do a line art project, I would say a big part of it is finding out a brush that you really like and works for you the way you like to work.
I would absolutely agree with Tessa says. When I talk about all of my brushes are pretty much the same brush. Like the settings and the feel, all of these feel the exact same. It's just like, oh, one's a little messier, right? But they're very similar. So I definitely kind of have my round brush is like that, right? I use a round brush too. I use a round and a flat. My color brushes are pretty simple. I've started to use a little texture thanks to Ethan. uh, but you know, I keep things pretty.
I'm happy to help.
Yeah, those
And give brushes away.
Yeah, I'll definitely throw my brushes in the chat after I'm done if anyone wants my line stuff.
I've been using the hard round recently to do line art because I've just been getting tired of like switching between texture brushes, and it's actually kind of been working out really well. Like everyone should try it, honestly, just for a little bit to see how the hard round treats you.
The hard round's really good. If I remember on Photoshop, I use the hard round and I just go into scattering and I turn scattering a little bit up. That's all I do. That gets the hard round a little messier. That's just like the way I like for these things to look. But hard round is goated. Go something slightly cooler. I don't know. I like. I might use the kind of a similar color for the coat. Maybe change it around a little. I might do some like highlights on it. But I don't know. I love my worm colors. I clearly have a bias. That's not even like, it's so obvious. I love worm. I'm just trying to get better with using cooler colors. I did a piece like the other day that was very cool, but it wasn't the greatest piece. It was just like, oh, here's some cool colors.
Well, I always think you're cool.
Thank you, Chris. But yeah, just flatten away. Yada, yada, yada. Everyone's like, Will, you should do comics. It's like, I don't like comics. Like, I like the idea of comics, but like, I've never finished a comic book in my entire life. I just like, I don't know. Oh, and that's why it's because I didn't connect this, right? Nah, that was it. Sneaky. Nope. This stuff's the worst. For real. I'm so bad with filling. Maybe I should have brought some music. I don't know. Sheesh, everyone's leaving. I get it. Y'all got shit to do. Okay. Oh, I forgot the hair. Oops. I forgot. Okay, cool. Now that we've got, oh man, I forgot the feet. I cannot draw. Okay, I can draw, but I can't remember. Whatever. Sheesh. Okay, finally. Now we can get into how I like to do colored line work. So where I like to use my colored line work is around, I love doing stuff with skin with it. I think that's like one of its best applications, is kind of accentuating how skin works, bringing a bit of red in. So I'm going to do a little bit of flatting real fast. I like going a little bit warmer when I do my shadow. So I'll just put in some of these, and then what I'll do is I'll also whip out my line work brush, right? I'll switch over to this and I'll start doing some of these. Like I'll start adding my line work within my rendering. So that's a little bit of a twist on it, right? Definitely also, going back, adding a clipping mask over. Getting some of these browns instead of blacks where we have interior contours, like right here, so that's not as harsh, or on the nose, the mouth, stuff like that. The pecs can be more of a brown. It's subtle, right? Good colored line work is very subtle, I think. I like having a little bit of subtlety. Just switching stuff from, black to more of a warmer tone, depending on where you are, is really good. So yeah, bringing in that line work brush, I think it has a lot of power as a rendering tool for detailing and like little bits that you kind of forgot to add in your actual line work. Oh, I'm on my clipping mask. I'm a dummy. Like doing stuff like this, doing our kind of ridges and little bits of the nose with our line work brush is really powerful. Gets us a lot of good detailing and is kind of like a really speed run method of getting colored line work, is adding the colored line work as you're doing the rendering. So that's kind of how I like to think about it. Maybe we'll do a little bit of this stuff too. I haven't brought that out in a while, doing a little ambient occlusion and subsurface scattering. So stuff like that, getting really nice bits of interior contours, really subtle stuff.
That's honestly the exact thing that I do. Like I kind of just cheat it. I just color my line work and then I use that to like guide rendering.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think it's definitely a little bit cheaty, but it looks good, and you're making your line work brush more versatile than it actually is. So that's really important, is having that versatility, having that flexibility. Yeah, so let's show it off with doing something like the coat, or not the coat, the shirt, the Victorian kind of. I'll add my flats. I've been using this Cynics brush that I made, or that I got. I don't know where I pulled this thing up. It's just like a flat brush. That's all it is. It's a flat brush with like a little bit of softness in like opacity and pressure and all that. So again, I'm not using anything crazy here. It's just like I like things a little modified from their base forms, because I like to feel for everything to feel a certain way while I'm actually drawing, for me to enjoy it. So getting some of those shadows in, and I'll go back and I'll pick in my line work brush, and I'll take this, I'll make it a little darker, and I'll add some detail. I'll go here, like, wow, he's doing colored line work. Crazy. Oh, you know what? Let me do the hands. This is actually probably its best to use. Check this out. So we go to our line work. I'll just get rid of this individual like middle line, right? We'll alpha lock it, great. I usually use my shadow tone and go a little more reddish to show, that subsurface scattering. Our fingers are kind of red. That's a little too red, actually. So let's go maybe a little more desaturated. Yeah, that's a lot better. So I'll do some of this, right? I'll get my fingertips like red. And then here's like the magic, right? I'll make this dark. I'll take my Linework brush and wow, like what great fingers. And then you can add some dots for like knuckles. It's such a cheat, but it's really good. So doing this to add little bits of detail, like, the creases where your thumb and your pointer, that little bit of skin. You can do that with our Linework brush. So that's really critical. And then again, this is kind of an interior contour. So I can go back to this. I can take my my brown that I grabbed, and I'll make my fingers a little brown when it's skin over skin, right? So we can see that very clearly, and it has a little softness. So really important. Yeah, I'll do this too, just to separate it a little bit. Yeah, so using a brown or using like a little bit of a warmer color to kind of accentuate where you're doing skin. Very simple. It's not very complex. It's just something to keep in mind. Do some of this stuff. I'll get my folds a little nicer. Yada yada. Cool. And then for the pants, I love doing a lot of the intricate detail in pants folds with my Linework brush. So watch this. I'll first do a little bit darker and a little bit warmer to do, and I'll make my brush really big, and I'll do like some of this, right? I'll get my my pants like a little bit darker, getting a nice like little bit of gradient in there. And then what I'll do, right, is I'll take my Linework brush, I'll grab the color from my pants, and I'll do like the little bits of folds. So when, pants have folds that are kind of going around, I don't know how to describe this. Like pants are kind of tight around the crotch area, like these kinds of folds, okay? This stuff. And then some of this, a little bit under there. Just like a little bit of detail. You can do the kind of stitch line too with that. I think it looks really nice. I might have gone a little bit too bright here. So I think I'm actually going to walk a little bit back. And we'll go with something a little more subtle. So let's just go with like this. So you can do pants really well by just like doing some of these guys. And then maybe one across, and then do like the button, that stuff in there, all with your Linework brush. And then doing like the little kneecaps too. You can also kind of actually, I think my knee's down here. Oops. And I alpha locked it, didn't I? Such a funny guy. Retrospectively, I could have done this as a clipping mask. But, little bits of detail like that. It's very simple, but I think it's quite powerful. So let's try to add a little bit of that into the coat. I like doing detailing too. So a lot of what I do is just kind of like I'll airbrush a shadow in here because, it's behind him. This is something I've learned for more rendered stuff. I like starting out with an airbrush and then kind of doing my shadow stuff just to get a really like smooth block in. It looks nice. I'll do that, and then I'll kind of bring in a similar technique. I'll do some subtle patterns along. I think my Apple Pencil just died. All right, nice. Got to charge that. But yeah, a lot of really like simple tricks to make your line work just a little flashier. But yeah, not the finger. You know, there are people out there who go and do these entire pieces with just their finger on the iPad. And it's like, I do not get it. I cannot draw with my finger. It is so hard. But then again, my fingers are like blunt instruments, tools of destruction. I'm not very precise. Yeah, people do like drawing on like Snapchat stories that are like masterpieces. I don't get it. Those people are wizards. Yeah, okay. So I think my pencil has a little bit of juice. Yeah, I'll do some of the details in the back. I'll make it kind of subtle. You know, stuff like this. I'll add some fancy patterning. Just with my line work brush, it makes things a little more intricate. So pretty nice. Like, think about your line work brush not as your line work brush, but as just another brush, right? It's another tool in your pocket. Now, I'm no expert on patterns, so that's probably why this doesn't look amazing, but it looks okay. And you can see some of the rough fill lines. If I wanted to make this look really good, I would have gone in and cleaned a lot of this stuff up. But it's a demo piece. This isn't meant to be fantastic. Yeah, and then I'll go in here. I'll add some of I'll go a little lighter on this outer part of the coat. Wait, did I do the top part of the coat on a separate layer? Am I a dummy? No, I just somehow switched my color. I'm not a dummy. Go a little lighter, Get this in here. Yeah, there we go. Woo! Very cool. And then, I'll do it in the hair too. I'll add a little bit of line work just to, I'll also make, I'll do this too. I'll go back to my clipping mask. I'll turn this from black to like maybe a dark gray. Maybe even a blue, honestly, like a deep blue for the silver. Little bits where you can kind of funk it. It's subtle, but that's okay. Yeah, and then I'll take my line work brush and I'll go and I'll add my little bits of like hair going. I'll add some of these to show how the hair is taking form. Some curls in there too. Very wavy. Stuff like here too, in the back of the hair. Yeah, very simple. And then maybe I'll just throw like, see the Will Grossman Classic. Maybe throw a little overlay on here. Make it a little more subtle. Ooh. Yeah, it's I don't think it's that bad. That would be sick. Honestly, an Apple Pencil that's split in two so you could have infinite charging, that'd be dope. Or just two Apple Pencils. Why not have two? Each one's $100 though, so that kind of sucks. But yeah, this was a pretty simple demo. I hope y'all maybe picked up something. I know I was a little jumbled, but we persevered. I think I'm gonna unmute people. If anyone wants to ask any questions, I'll be here. I could keep working on this. I can answer stuff. I'm gonna start unmuting people. Tessa, maybe if you want to stop the recording.